Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's Gaming News at Noon with Salty and Boom. And I have come to the realization that I'm doing something right because every time I get ready to start one of these live streams, I get goosebumps and excitement for having a voice in this community. And, to be honest with you, this for me is a dream come true. I have been working really hard, especially this particular week with the amount of stories we have for this week's show. But of course, I could not do this amazing show if it wasn't for my partner in crime, Salty from the Saltiest Podcast. Welcome, dude.
Good afternoon, everybody. And yeah, Boom, you tested my reading skills. Let's just say that in the DM, right?
Sorry about that.
All good, man. All good. Yeah, it's amazing to be back on this hump day for Wednesday. This gaming news at noonday is what we'll call it. But yeah, I'm happy to be here on the final boss on Sekiro. Like I was telling you, man, it's crazy. Having just great, awesome news left and right, every day of this week. Craziness, lots of saltiness going on, but yeah, let's have a good show.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, first of all, we're going to start in the Sony camp. Quite frankly, if you're a Sony fan, you have been starving for positive news. And we have a lot for you today. I think we have at least 5 stories. We're going to open up with the Mark Cerny Wired interview. I read that interview twice. Because I'm not a very technical kind of guy. I'm the guy that likes to sit in front of his couch, press play, enjoy the game, and talk about it on a podcast. Of course, I'm not a boob. I understand what it takes to make these games and what power is required by these consoles. But Mark Cerny, let me just say this. First of all, he is a genius. And, being a Sony fan, which of course I am, and a supporter of the brand, both on the PlayStation 4 Pro side and, of course, PlayStation VR, it's really comforting to know that he has so much confidence and he's leading the charge for the PlayStation 5, which of course I'm going to be a day one owner. What I found very interesting about this particular Wired interview, Salty, was that he confirmed that it was not coming out in 2019. I think you and I both agree that that was not happening. It was... Sony is the masters of marketing, right? So we understand that they don't do things by accident. Everything that they do is calculated. I've heard some theories about, because they're releasing the specs this early, we're probably going to get a March 2020 release for the PlayStation 5. You know what? If it does come out, guess what? I'll be using my tax check to pay for the PlayStation 5. They talked about ray tracing. They talked about the solid state drive. One of the things that I thought was magnificent, and it was explained very well in the Wired article, is that he had 2 systems with him. And he loaded Spider-Man, of course, by Insomniac Games on a regular PlayStation 4 Pro. And it took 15 seconds to move from one part of the map to the other. And then he loaded up the PlayStation 5 dev kit, and it took 0.8 seconds. And I thought, wow, that kind of power, that kind of speed, I'm getting goosebumps all over again just talking about it. Salty, what were your takeaways from what Mark Cerny had to say about the PlayStation 5?
Oh, man, so many things to take away from this reveal. First of all, the time that they chose to do it, you got to ask yourself why they chose yesterday in the morning randomly to come out with some of these specs. You can speculate about that. It was the day that Xbox was going to be revealing the sad console, but I don't think those correlate. Maybe they do. Some people are kind of speculating on. I think Brad Sams was talking about that on RDX, potentially being one of those things. Just so many details here, but you got to take this with a hashtag grain of salt because of the person it's coming from. Mark Cerny's been historic for kind of embellishing, let's just say, when it comes to technical aspects and capabilities when it comes to some of these systems. If you guys remember, he was talking about rapid packed math and what's that was going to do to the PlayStation 4 and give it 8 gigawatts, no, 8 teraflops suddenly of power. Because of rapid pack math, but we all know what happened with that. So, like I said before, some of these things that they're talking about, yeah, a majority of them are going to come to fruition. But, you know, the 8K graphics, skeptical about that. You know, are they going to do it for maybe some indie game there? But we're not even at a point right now in America, at least. The adoption rate is not even at 50% with TVs for 4K. So then you're
Great point, Salty.
expecting people to jump up to 8K. There's not really a point there. I wish they would have focused more on talking about frame rates, because that's really truly what's important. Because resolution, when you're getting up into 8K, I hope your TV's as big as a billboard, you know, because that's what you need to like take advantage of 8K. So the 8K thing was kind of get me to smirk about it. But yeah, the load times that you were talking about, that's one of the main issues that I have with the current technology is the load times, man. The load times are just horrendous. Like you're sitting in some of these games and waiting minutes, 5 minutes. It's just crazy. Like Battlefield games and all kinds of games I can pull out and just show you the load times. And the fact that they're talking about the fast travel time being reduced, the amount that it is crazy. SSD backwards compatibility, that was one of the main things that stood out to me. That we hear lots of rumors doing these shows, but to get that confirmation from you know, the main source that they're going to have backwards compatibility brought a smile to my face, because I don't know if you guys know this, I still don't have a PlayStation 4. I've been thinking about getting one. I almost got one last Black Friday, but I didn't pull the trigger there. But this confirmation has all but sealed the deal for me to just wait for the PlayStation 5, because why would I spend, you know, $300, $400 on a PlayStation 4 when I can get a PS5, have all the bells and whistles, and be able to play all those old games? You know, ray tracing, amazing feature. It was announced through an article that they're working on implementing ray tracing and in cards as low as the GTX 1060. So it only makes sense that they're going to be implementing ray tracing. A lot of people aren't going to know what ray tracing even is, but it's going to make the graphics look super realistic with the way the light works in games. They've been using this technology in movies for a while here, so it's very, very I don't know. It gets me excited. All right. So yeah, lots of good things here. I think, like I said, we need more details in the specifics when it comes to the chips. You know, but they're not going to get those out until we actually get an announcement, you know, price point, the release date. I kind of think that this is going to be a holiday release date for them, and potentially might even leak into 2021, but we'll see what happens here. When it comes to tech things, I'm pretty well versed when it comes to tech. I'm not on the level of, like, let's say a dealer or anything like that, but you know, I know what's going on here. So it's exciting to read some of these things that they're putting out, because honestly, this is above and beyond what people were thinking with the PlayStation 5. Honestly, when you talk about teraflops and power, this thing is close, in my opinion, to the Xbox Anaconda. It's going to be interesting to see if they're going to have multiple SKUs, what the price point's going to be, because minimum, I think this is going to be $500. So people were talking about a $400 system. You can all but throw that out, because if you're putting SSD in there and you're getting 8K graphics with ray tracing, that's not free. And even if PlayStation takes a loss at the system, it's still going to cost some money. You know.
Oh, so, yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. So that was a long-winded response, but.
No. This is a conversational podcast,
you know?
Dude. This is what we do, Salty, and I love hearing you talk.
Yeah, super excited. How could you not be excited as a gamer to hear this kind of tech being put into the future? Like, this is the future of gaming that we're looking at here. The graphics are going to be insane, folks. Like, they're going to blow our minds. You're talking about just draw distances, lighting, all this, everything. It's going to just look amazing. Photorealism. I've always wanted that photorealistic graphics in some of my games. And when I played Metro, it's getting close to that, but like next gen, it's just going to blow your face off, you know? So another thing that we need to look at is, does power matter? I would say, yes, it does for the big two, you know? So I think this kind of confirms that, because if power didn't matter, they wouldn't be putting out a system like this, you know? So.
Well, you know, I'm glad you brought up the $500 price tag, because, you know, the Xbox brand took a lot of body shots when the X was released at $500. Now, we know that, you know, you did a tweet earlier where you found it for, it came with 2K19 and the X for 307. And that's a fantastic deal. I'm going to be honest with you. I would be extremely surprised if the PlayStation 5 is under $500, simply because of what you said. There is just too much being packed into this console. And when you think about the controller being, having that digital, face pad, very similar to like, a Game Boy or something, it's just going to increase the price tenfold on everything. The SSD drive, not cheap, even if you buy it in bulk. A 1 terabyte right now is $150. So even if they were able to get that down to $100 because they're buying in bulk, Salty, that's still $100 drive. Now, okay, we are talking 1 year. It could, it could drop. It's always possible. But I'm willing to pay $500 for the PS5 because I know what I'm going to be getting with it. But you know what? I want to move on to the next topic because we have 18 of them today. Like Salty said, I had this guy reading a novel because I like to over prepare for these shows. And you know what? It makes a better show. And with almost 100 people already watching, I want to make sure that your time is well spent because we both appreciate you being here in the chat. Before I move on to the next topic, please do me a favor, tweet this out. Share this on social media, and also do me a favor. If you're enjoying the show, it does really help the channel, especially with the YouTube analytics, that you hit that like button. If you like it, great. If you don't, look, all I'm going to say is I encourage you to hit the down button. It will force me and Salty to be better. Of course, we don't like thumbs downs, but if you're not enjoying it, what am I going to say? I'm not going to tell you hit the like button. But let's move on to the next story. So the Days Gone is coming out soon. Of course, I have the collector's editions pre-ordered. I've talked about it. I'm amped. I have a space on my shelf already for it. It's a game I'm going to gladly look to put at least 30, 40, maybe 50 hours into, depending on what the game is, it winds up being, because I still don't know. But the reviews are being held back through an embargo, and they're not going up into 5:01 a.m. Pacific time on April 25th, which is a day before it releases. Now, look, I'm not ringing the fire alarm to say that it's going to be shit. I have high hopes for this game. It's exactly what I really enjoy about the Sony games. They're over-the-shoulder, third-person, story-driven, adult-themed, action-oriented title. I live for these games, which is why I gladly support the PlayStation brand. And I really want to see Ben Studios do well. Obviously they have been on the ropes, and if this game fails, I think the studio is going to be closed. Though I don't think the game is going to fail. But Salty, with 2 delays or multiple delays for Days Gone, are you concerned about the reviews being held back literally into the 12th hour? Does that concern you?
Yeah, it concerns me a little bit, and mostly for the consumer. I know there's a lot of people that are kind of against reviews and Metacritic and all that other stuff, but I think if you take it with the way it's supposed to be taken and just kind of a baseline to kind of make your own opinion based off of people you trust, when you have these reviews dropping so close to launch, I mean, it kind of affects people's ability to do their own research when it comes to like listening to people they trust and trying to make these purchases. Because you're spending this money on these games, and a lot of times if you read something from someone that you believe and it's not something that you want to have in your game, you might change your idea and cancel your pre-order. So yeah, it kind of makes you think here, and I'm not going to go to the extreme and say this game's going to tank and they're worried about reviews and stuff like that, but it is kind of odd when developers and publishers decide to last minute the reviews like this. I know there's some other games have done this as well. I think the Ashen, they didn't even get review copies out to people until like the launch. It was kind of a stealth launch. So sometimes these publishers make some weird decisions when it comes to these reviews as well, or embargoes or whatever. So I think the game in itself, I think the extra time and care, just based off of what people are saying, because initially when you're looking at like the Eurogamers and when they had the initial looks into this game, it wasn't pretty, you know, like the performance wasn't good, and they were kind of skeptical on some of the story elements. But it seems like the extra time and care they put into this game is going to do it well. I think if I'm going to predict kind of a Metacritic score for this, I think it's going to probably be in the low 80s, 83 range, maybe potentially. I think it's going to be a pretty good game. I'm kind of tired of the zombie genre, to be honest. Like I saw World War Z, and it was kind of
It
just,
looks
you know,
good though. I gotta
it
be
looks
honest.
good. It looks good. Like it looks like I'd have fun with my friends for a certain period of time, but I'm just worrying about the staying power. Like with those games, you're reliant on having your friends like be online. I don't know how the other stuff works. Like you can probably play with AI. I haven't done much research into it, but it just looks like you know, you're shooting zombies, and yeah, there's more zombies on the screen, but it's just the same. You know, it's my opinion. I guess it's all subjective, but yeah.
I mean, look, let me just say this. Yes, the zombie genre is getting slightly a little long in the tooth. I mean, we've had Resident Evil 2, the remake. We're having Days Gone. We have World War Z. You know, you have zombies in Call of Duty. I'm going to be honest with you. I've always been, you know, a Living Dead fan. You know, George Romero classic.
Yeah.
You know, I've always been a fan of that. I don't know if I'm ever going to get tired. I think that, you know, not calling them, you know, calling them Zeds or calling them whatever else they want to call them to kind of just change it up. They're zombies, or they're half dead or whatever you want to call them. I'm looking forward to this. I'm hoping that, I mean, listen, it looks amazing. I hope it plays amazing. I hope that there's, you know, from what we understand, there's a big story behind this. You know, we've seen a lot of the trailers. They're marketing the hell out of this. I'm really glad for that. I'm excited for Days Gone. You know, and I think people in the chat are excited. You know, let's move on to the next one. Naughty Dog, the developer of The Last of Us Part 2, gives new development update to the fan base. You know, and it's, you know, it's slightly disappointing. It's not the most exciting news that the fans, including myself, were waiting for. But this last week, The Last of Us creative director Neil Druckmann took to Instagram to provide a new development update to the highly anticipated PS4 exclusive. Though sadly, Druckmann didn't reveal a release date or anything extremely substantial, to be honest, but he did reveal that Laura Bailey has finished her motion capture work for, in his opinion and his words, his favorite characters in the game, Salty. Now, look, here's the thing. We don't know who Laura Bailey plays in the upcoming action-adventure game, but given her status as one of the best voice actresses in the industry, it's safe to presume that it's a sizable role. But we still don't have a clue on the release date. Now, of course, like the PlayStation 5, many people in the very extremely toxic part of the community, not the good folks at the PlayStation Nation, the ones that just ruin it for everyone, were absolutely adamant that this was coming out this year along with the PlayStation 5 and FU Xbox, right? Well, it turns out that's not in fact the case. This is going to be either a launch title for the PlayStation 5, which would be great, or it's going to launch in that 3-month window, which is still considered, you know, that 90-day period is still considered a launch title. What are your takeaways from Neil Druckmann's Instagram pictures of Laura Bailey, but more specifically, still not talking about a release window?
Yeah, I think at this point, why would you? You know, you keep the fans waiting. You know, you stoke the fire with some of these stories. The thing is you always need to keep interest in your game, no matter what's happening. So sometimes you release some of these stories, and it gets it sparks their interest. Now, if you're not saying anything about the game, that kind of tells you, hey, I mean, there's what's going on here. You having some issues, kind of like, you know, Crackdown when it kind of went dark for a while. So the fact that they're getting information out there is good, but in no way does that say that this game's going to be coming out this year. You know what I'm saying? And I just think it's a good move on the part of these teams to just keep getting that information out. They're not forced to tell you, hey, this is when it's coming out. They just kind of keep, spreading the cheese on the ground, letting the mice, go for the cheese. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. I mean, if I was a betting man and I was a businessman, why wouldn't you push a lot of these games that are semi-ready or almost ready and push them back for the next gen? I mean, if you look at the competitor side with Microsoft, Halo, for example, I'm sure they could have rushed that out and try to get that out towards the end of the generation. But at the end of the day, would that have benefited them? No. I mean, you need to have a good slate of launch titles. That's one of the biggest 3 requirements for this next generation. What's going to set these consoles apart is, number 1, price point, number 2, your release date, and then you got to have a launch lineup that is palatable or marketable. I mean, they're going to go head to head and say, hey, these are our launch titles. Halo Infinite is there, and this and that. The new Forza Motorsport's going to be there, or whatever else. What other titles are going to be there for Microsoft? And then on the other side, I mean, Ghost of Tsushima and some other titles. You need to have those launch titles. So I think that's the case here. I don't think it's coming out this year. I think it's just going to be a launch title for the PlayStation 5.
I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yep.
I mean, you think about the titles that they've kind of been hanging around, right? You said it, Ghost of Tsushima, Kojima's title. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest with you. We don't know when that's going to come out, but it's going to be coming out hopefully within the next year or so. And then, of course, Last of Us 2. I mean, these games have the potential to be Game of the Year whenever they come out. So, of course, it would be foolhardy just to kind of throw it out there. You put this in front of a PlayStation 5 launch, and there's going to be a frenzy with the fan base. And, of course, new people. I mean, again, look, I said this before, 85%, Salty, of the PlayStation 100 million, let's just be fair and say, is casual. These folks buy 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 games a year if they're lucky and they wait for sales. The only games they get day and date are like the Maddens, the Call of Duties, and of course, like the NBA 2K, whatever. They're casual gamers. These casual folks are the majority, and they're not going out to spend $500 on a PlayStation 5. The 10 or 15% of the PlayStation Nation will be running out day one, and I'm one of them. I will be buying a PlayStation 5 day one and taking pictures and putting it up on Twitter and doing videos and talking about it. I'm going to be excited just like when the Xbox Anaconda comes out. But you got to remember, the hardcore is a very small percentage. So the 100 million mark that everyone's been touting for this entire generation is not going to be the same. It's going to take 5, 6, 7 years for the fan base to come around because people are happy with their PS4s. So I don't know. I mean, listen, it's interesting. I'm really want to see what they're doing. And you know what? Speaking of Hideo Kojima and Norman Reedus, they are going to be attending the Tribeca Film Festival this month to talk about Days Gone. Oh my God, Death Stranding. And to be honest with you, I'm excited to hear what they have to say. I pulled this story from Game Informer. And look, Salty, here's the thing: Death Stranding has an enigma attached to it. We've heard many people involved with the development of this game that they don't know what kind of a game it is. As we know, the title was revealed in E3 2016, and outside of a few trailers, it's kind of been radio silence. Now, Kojima and actor Norman Reedus, who stars in the game, obviously, along with the Game Awards leader Jeff Keighley, are set to discuss the game for an hour at the panel at Tribeca Film Festival on Thursday, April 25th. The panel description says, together, they, Kojima and Reedus, will discuss pushing the boundaries of the video game medium and talk about how their relationship has established over working on the title together. Look, I'm going to be honest with you, Salty. There's a possibility that we might actually get some solid information about the game. But it's still when I talk about it, it's almost like Metal Gear where I have the question mark over my head. What are your takes on this? And are you expecting them to explain exactly what this game is?
Are they gonna explain exactly what it is? I mean, even if they did, I mean, I still think that people would be confused on a little bit of a level because based off of stories that we heard before, people that have been taking tours into the studio, they come out and they're just like, man, I don't know how they're gonna pull this off. I don't even know what's going on, you know. So yeah, is it good that they're getting together and they're gonna get some information out there? Yeah, but at this point, I still think it's gonna be tidbits of information. I don't think it's going to be an exact, hey, this is what's going on in this game. Because I think to a certain extent, Kojima likes to have it as a mystery and it's kind of like figure it out yourself kind of a deal. So they're going to give enough information that they deem necessary to the consumer base and then keep them, you know, curious about what's going on. It's kind of that mystery type thing with him. I don't get it, but I think it's a good thing. I think it's good that Norman Reedus is hanging out there and, you know, they're going to be together. They seem to be good pals and all that good stuff. So yeah, I think we're going to get more information, but not all of it, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, listen, any information at this point would be good information.
Dude.
I mean, look, honestly, good, right? If a couple of, I think it was last year, Dealer Gaming did an awesome FedEx video with him carrying all that luggage. It was really good. Go check his channel for that. He doesn't need my help. He already has 20,000 plus subs, but I love Dealer Gaming. And of course, everyone on that panel. You know, first of all, before I get to the next topic, Gotham Guy with the outstanding $5 super chat. He says Sony's exclusives usually launch in March or April. Well said. Spider-Man notwithstanding, and of course, that's a holiday game. I don't see Last of Us 2 trying to compete with Gears 5 this holiday. Yeah, I don't think anything is going to want to go up against Gears because Gears is going to be a monster. But let's move on to the next topic, and I'm excited for this one. Frozen Wilds voice actress teases an incredible, in air quotes, sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn. And this story, Salty, has me super stoked. If you've been subbed to me on YouTube or follow me on Twitter, I have championed Horizon Zero Dawn since its release on February 28th, 2017. And thanks to new information provided to us by PlayStationLifestyle.com, apparently, it's going to be incredible. The tease comes to us from Janina Gavankar, who played the character of Tita in Horizon Zero Dawn's The Frozen Wilds expansion. During Star Wars Celebration, Gavankar spoke to a cosplayer about Horizon Zero Dawn, and apparently she told the fan the following about the eventual sequel. It's incredible. Wait till you see the sequel. You're gonna die. I know some secrets. You're gonna die. Now, as of this show, it seems the clip of the exchange has been taken down. That's not surprising because obviously we weren't even supposed to know that they were working on it, but it's common sense that Horizon Zero Dawn, with Aloy being such a strong female character, is going to be a big part of the PlayStation universe moving forward. You know, Salty, when you get to your PS4, okay, well, here's the thing, Salty. When, and I say when because you're going to get it, you get your PlayStation 5, Horizon Zero Dawn is a title I highly recommend. And the more I hear about Horizon Zero Dawn 2, the more I would like to believe that it's also and could possibly launch with the PlayStation 5. What are your takes on what this voice actress had to say? And are you surprised that Sony had that part taken down?
I'm not surprised. You know, they control the information out there, and I'm sure, you know, stuff is meant to be kept behind closed door. But I think she's just excited, you know?
Yeah.
She's just proud to be part of that franchise and doing something good and amazing, and especially with the success of that new IP, because it's difficult. I've tried to, you know, put a focal point on this. It's difficult to get new IP out there and have them be so successful, especially like this was, man. I mean, nominated for Game of the Year, just spectacular, great main character, all that good stuff. So yeah, she was just, you know, talking to people and getting excited. And sometimes things, you know, slip out that you're not supposed to say, and it kind of gets passed around the internet like it usually does on social media. And I'm sure it got back to Sony, and they're like, yeah, let's take this down, you know, because like if you look at it, it's like, come on, this game was ultra successful. There's no way there's not going to be a sequel, but they just kind of want to control the information at this point. So it is what it is, but it's exciting for the fans. I mean, you know for a sure thing that they're in the process of making this, and I think that the development time is going to be sped up. Usually, they're in the pre-development process, and it takes some time to get the planning out. And especially with this new IP, you got to figure things out, and you're kind of filling your way out. But like with the sequels, I think it should be sped up when it comes to development time. So yeah, could this be a title that launches on the PlayStation 5? I mean, potentially, or worst case scenario, maybe a year out from launch. So I think that's going to be spectacular. Because with all the power of the new systems, can you imagine how good that open world is going to look? How big they'll probably make it.
And great on the old one.
Yeah. So it's going to be good.
I real quick, the leader H in the chat says they confirmed Horizon won't launch with the PS5. You know what? I didn't hear that. If in fact that is the case, I'm disappointed, but we know it's coming out. So thank you for the information. I do appreciate that. And of course, thank you for being here. Let's talk about the next PlayStation story, Salty. Last week we discussed PSN name change, and were confirmed, and that there were a lot of PlayStation 4 owners. They've been waiting for this, and I've been talking to a lot of my friends who, of course, did the change, and they've had no hiccups. So great on that. But that's actually not what we're going to talk about right now. Sony, when it comes to security and it comes to online profiles, they kind of sometimes been a little lackluster in their approach on how they handle things. Well, apparently they're taking how people depict themselves with these names very seriously, and they're being extremely proactive, or more specifically taking a proactive approach on what player uses as their PSN identification. And if they don't like it, they will now automatically, without warning, replace the offensive PlayStation Network ID with a temporary placeholder until you change it to what you want. Moving forward, the official PlayStation blog outlines that any PlayStation Network ID that violates the network's terms of service will be censored by a temporary placeholder ID that reads temp XXXX. The X's are replaced by numbers in the actual user name. Salty, what? First of all, while this might sound like a funny placeholder name, which when I gave a second ago, it's much less severe than having your account closed. Do you think that this is an extreme measure for Sony to automatically do it, or do you applaud them for being so proactive?
Well, there's two sides of the coin here, and I can see where Sony's coming from. But for the one, if you're a gamer, I mean, what's worse? To get your PSN ID changed to like some placeholders, or getting your account banned? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a no-brainer there. But there's the other side of the coin where if you're the gamer, you feel kind of violated with your rights. I mean, what's defined as suspect or not good for PlayStation, and what catches those problems in the system, or what's vulgar, what's their definition, where you draw that line? I mean, if you have a PSN ID that is kind of on the line and then it gets changed, you can kind of feel like you're violated with your rights, I guess, and you're being censored, because PlayStation is historic for censoring other stuff, some content in video games and stuff like that. So there's kind of a gray line that you can walk there, and I can see they need to keep things PC for their company, because they have children on the network and all kinds of stuff. They don't want them seeing vulgar stuff, but at the same time, you're just walking this line, because it's like, well, where do you draw the line? Like, where do you say what is vulgar and what is not? And I mean, what is catching this? Is it a computer program? Because a lot of times these computer programs just make mistake after mistake after mistake, right? And what's the appeal process? If they put a placeholder on your name, can you appeal that, or is it just a done deal? You know what I'm saying? Like a computer flags your ID, and then boom, it's changed, and there's no question about it. Those are the things that I want to ask as a consumer, because I'm not going to be making a vulgar name or anything, but I mean, people they have their rights as a consumer as well. So you got to take in all these factors when you look at some of these arguments, not just one side of the coin. And that's the way I like to approach these things. Boom.
Yeah, you know what? It's always you're right. It's always a fine line, especially when things are being done for you. Because is it really offensive? You're right. Is it being caught by actual people, or is it in the algorithm where a computer's just saying, "Nope, this isn't good," and you're out? I don't know. It's interesting. I have not heard too many complaints. Of course, as this story continues to roll down the street, we will be updating it to, because again, you could hear horror stories, or you can hear, like, with the PSN name change, all I heard was positive stuff. People didn't lose their trophies. People didn't have issues playing their games. So let's hope that it doesn't become an issue. Of course, we don't like negative news on this show, but we have to report all of it. Salty, let's move on to the second part of this of today's show, and we're going to talk about a subject that you and I both love and bring smiles to our faces, and that we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch. Ubisoft CEO remains tight-lipped about possible sequel to Mario plus Rabbids. Look, here's the thing, Salty. After the success that the new title garnered when it released on August 29th of 2017, there's no doubt that the Switch owners will be getting a sequel. I don't know about you. I loved the first one. I thought it was hilarious. I love the Rabbids. They're kind of like the Despicable Me little characters, the minions. I just think that they're really cool. They're funny. Since and here's the thing, Salty. Since the Switch generation began, Ubisoft has teamed up with Nintendo on a number of occasions. The first time around, of course, was the Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and more recently, Starlink Battle for Atlas, which received Star Fox exclusive content. And if you've been wondering about the next collaboration between the two video game giants, there's been a lot of talk about a potential sequel to Mario plus Rabbids. And during an interview on IGN Unfiltered recently, Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot was asked about the likelihood of a second game, and simply responded with the following comment, Salty. We can't say much today, but we had a good relationship, so let's see what will come. Now, look, he's obviously being coy. And when he was asked again about it, he laughed and he says, "I can't say." So, I mean, look, there's something in the works. Did you play Mario plus Rabbids? And did you like it if you did?
All right, so these type of games are not my bag.
Okay.
But the interesting thing is I still want to play it. Like that speaks volumes to the way the game is. I've heard enough things about this game to know that I would have fun with it, and that's, like I said, it speaks volumes to the development phase and just my love of Nintendo in general. But I know this game was very successful, and I think it's a good thing that Nintendo's branching outside to kind of get some outside talent to get a different perspective with some of their established franchises like Mario and some of this other stuff, and kind of making new IP with it. I think it's I think it's awesome, honestly. And then we have the Starlink game and all that other stuff. I think it's just a way to kind of get an outside perspective, because Ubisoft, they make their type of games, and then Nintendo, you have your way of thinking. So what's the best way to kind of meet in the middle? You get some new talent in there and you make some new games. So I didn't think this was going to happen with Nintendo, and when I heard this partnership with Ubisoft at E3, I was like, holy crap. And that's one of the things that just kind of got my brain thinking that Nintendo is just being more progressive and more proactive when it comes to game development and the way they're thinking. And we're seeing that with crossplay and the talks with Microsoft and the deals that are being made, moving some of their franchises onto the mobile platform, creating theme parks and serials and movies and all kinds of stuff that, like, if you look at the history of the company, they just kind of been in their realm, and they've been kind of they have their ways of doing things, and they're just kind of changing that. And I think it's exciting. Obviously, they're going to make a sequel to this, and I think it's a great franchise. I think it's a great addition to the portfolio for Nintendo. They have tons of great games. I'm still playing Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe, which is amazing.
Great game,
and there's just tons and tons of offerings out there, and just the lineup for 2019 is going to be amazing.
Yeah, real quick, Axel1324 in the chat, a big fan of the show, says, when will we be able to play Rabid in Smash? That actually would be cool, and I'm actually really surprised that we have not seen it, but it could be one of those unannounced DLC characters, because from what we understand, all 6 of the DLC characters that are coming in this pack have never been in Smash, so it is possible. That's really interesting. But you know what? Let's continue forward with the Nintendo news. Respawn's Drew McCoy had this to say: we're hearing all of the Switch players who say they want Apex Legends, and why not? If anything has been proven in the last 12 months, Salty, the Nintendo fan base will gobble up new and trendy software for the Nintendo Switch. Like Fortnite before it, Apex Legends will be a huge success on the platform. And last week, during Wired released a new video that featured Respawn's Drew McCoy. And McCoy answered questions from Twitter that were about Apex Legends. One, of course, was when he was asked about a Nintendo Switch version of the game. McCoy responded by saying, if Switch was coming, we would tell you, and we would blast it across the world. We're hearing all the Switch players who say they want the game. I can't make any promises right now. We have a lot of things that we're working on, so stay tuned for anything new in the future. But currently, we don't have anything to announce. The video could be found on YouTube if you're interested. Salty, let me just say this. First of all, this is a no-brainer for EA and Respawn, and considering how well Fortnite runs on the Switch, I'm confident in saying that Apex Legends should be released on the Switch later this year, hopefully by the end of the year. What are your feelings on this, and should Apex Legends come to the Switch?
All right, so when I look at some of these stories, I like to reference other things that happened in the industry. So if you look at the Nintendo Switch, when Fortnite released, it released in September of 2017, and the Switch was out at that time, and a lot of people were saying it would be perfect on the Switch, but it didn't just come out immediately for the Switch. It took time to port over and get that announcement out. They made the announcement at E3, the last E3, and they released it in the summer, June of 2018. So it was almost a calendar year that it took to get that over on the Switch. So the thing is with the Switch, you got a lot of things going on with it. It's not as powerful as a system, and it's going to take some workings there to get it to work. I think this is the same case for Apex Legends. It's not that like they don't want to get it on the Switch, and I think eventually it will go over there. Now, how good it's going to look is questionable, because Fortnite isn't that intensive when it comes to how powerful of a system you need to run it. And it still kind of looks suspect with the resolution and the draw distances and stuff like that. So I'm kind of questioning even if it's possible. I mean, everything's possible. They put, They put a couple games on the Switch that shouldn't have been there, and like, if it's not powerful enough to run Apex Legends to a quality that's acceptable, I don't want them to do it. But at the same time,
I agree.
I think it's just going to take time if it happens. But based off of the statements from this guy, it doesn't seem too positive, if that makes sense. So hopefully, if Apex Legends keeps up the popularity, which I think it will, I'm not expecting to see a port of any kind probably till next year sometime. So it's going to be a while if it ever happens.
Okay. Well, I mean, listen, you know what? At this point, the Switch does have a massive amount of third-party support. Of course, we'd all love to see them get this game. I think it would be big for the community. It'd be big for, gaming on the go. But we'll obviously update the story as the weeks and months go on. So let's move on to the next topic. And this is very interesting. As reported by Dual Shockers, where I pulled the story from, Mortal Kombat 11 on the Switch not only feels great to play, but it looks good enough. And considering how underpowered the console is compared to the Xbox One and PS4, this is great news, Salty. Despite a noticeably lower resolution, Mortal Kombat 11 for the Nintendo Switch with 60 FPS in mind is succeeding expectations to make for a fun experience. If you remember and accept the Nintendo philosophy of gameplay over graphics, Mortal Kombat 11 on Switch will be just fine for you. At a private Nintendo sit down with a developer from NetherRealm Studios, DualShock, one of the DualShock, journalists, Max Roberts, had some hands-on time with the version of the game, and only literally some I guess structured hands-on, because we're only allowed to play in the handheld mode, not on the actual dock mode, which is interesting. Long story short, though, Salty, they're stating that Mortal Kombat 11 is a particularly gorgeous game on the Switch, but boy, does it feel nice to play. The 60 frames per second certainly helped. And for what they're saying for them personally, the question of which version would I get, if you're, there are a lot of just Switch owners, I mean, okay, most gamers have at least two. Not all of them have three. I have three. I support all three, but you have two. There are plenty of people in this community, in this chat, that have a Switch and a PlayStation, a Switch and an Xbox. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm getting it for the Xbox One because it's going to be X enhanced and it's going to look the best and play the best on that console. But if I was a Switch owner and that's all I had, having Mortal Kombat on there, Salty, especially the new one, that's a big deal. Let me just ask you this, Salty. With this awesome news for gamers that only have the Nintendo Switch in their lives, I'm very excited to see gamers enjoying Mortal Kombat 11. What are your feelings on the matter? And should people who only have Switches be excited as well?
Yeah, it's I don't know what kind of magicians they got over there doing this port, but yeah, I've heard multiple reliable sources that the game looks and plays amazingly for the Switch. And I saw some things in the chat like it's gonna be 30 frames per second and like 360p and some of these things, man. It's not. It's gonna be 60 frames. It's not gonna have the best resolution, but at the same time, if you're playing it in handheld mode, that kind of makes up for it. Smaller screen. I think that one of the main draws for the Nintendo Switch, for me at least, and I know it's different for you, Boom, because you play dock, but I play my majority, I would say 99% of the time handheld, and I get that experience that I don't get on the Xbox, being able to play things when, let's just say, my wife is on the TV or my daughter's doing something on the TV, or even being able to play something with my daughter like Fortnite and stuff like that that's crossplay. So getting that at different experiences, like that main draw for me. So the ability to play Mortal Kombat on the go in handheld form, I think that's outstanding. And then if you have some people out there that are only Switch owners, which some people say that doesn't happen, but there are actually people out there that do just own the Switch. I think it's great news for them because they get to play some of these third-party multiplats, and Mortal Kombat 11 is one of the biggest titles of 2019. So I think it's great news, and I think it's outstanding. I think it just comes down to who you're getting to do these ports. There's some people that know what they're doing and they're able to port things over well, and then there's other people that port them very poorly, like Arc is just an abomination, you know what I'm saying? So it just depends on what game and who's porting it. So it's good news for Mortal Kombat 11, honestly.
Yeah, real quick, Ambassador Zemi, who is now a full-time member of Breakfast with Boom in the chat, says the last time a Mortal Kombat game came to the Nintendo platform was in 2007 on the Nintendo DS. He says, that's crazy. Just looked it up. I did not know that. So, yeah, first of all, welcome to being here. And thanks for the hot information. Also, a big shout out to our UK brother, Stubbs Gaming, in the chat. Welcome, my friend. You know what? Look, I'm going to say this. It's a great time to be a Switch owner, even if you're not going to double dip. And I understand why. Gaming is expensive, but you know what? Older games like the Dooms and the Castle Wolfensteins, those are great games on the go. And if you can play in handheld mode and it looks great, why the hell not? So I'm interested to see how it fares in regards to the reviews, but what the people are saying. But you know what? Let's move on to the next story. And this is very interesting, Salt. I think you're going to dig this. I think the fans, the nearly 120 people in the chat watching live are going to dig this. Thanks to a story I pulled from Verge.com, we now know that the Nintendo Switch in Japan offers a peek at cloud gaming and the future of it. And from what we're about to hear and discuss, it's looking very good. The hype has risen and fallen for cloud gaming a few times recently and, of course, in the past, but it's never been hotter than right now, Salty. As we know and are all aware of, the Nintendo Switch, of course, is the less powerful console than its competitors, the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. But after reading this outstanding article, Salty, I have a lot of faith in the cloud and the power it holds. But the author of the article states that it's not likely this technology is so far out of reach everywhere. He happens to live in Japan, where fast internet access is ubiquitous, and that he's saying he's played various big name AAA games that run entirely off of the cloud, and it's been going on for a while. And this is where the article gets really good, Salty. Capcom was the first to stream a AAA game to the Switch with a version of Resident Evil 7 last May. And when that was, obviously that did very well for them. And it apparently looked and ran really well on the Switch using the cloud. The biggest release so far, though, and this is Japan only, folks, Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which hit the Switch eShop in Japan on the same day as retailers started selling their PS4 and Xbox One copies, giving players a rare chance to experience a AAA game for the first time via streaming technology. According to the author, Salty, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is the best-looking Switch title to date, and hearing this has me really excited for not only the future of the platform, but cloud gaming. If Nintendo, and this is my question to you, Salty, if Nintendo puts the use of the cloud tech here in the States, there's no reason why you would not want to buy a AAA game on this platform. Do you want to see Nintendo introduce the use of cloud-based computing here in the States?
Yes, I do. I've heard some people that have participated in some of these cloud streaming activities, whether it's with Google or some other people that actually have used this technology over in Japan with the Nintendo products. And I've heard very good things, and especially with these titles, like single player experiences specifically, I think it's perfect there.
Yes.
So the ability to play something like an Assassin's Creed Odyssey that would just plain out wouldn't be possible with the hardware that the Switch has. It's just plain and simple. It could not work. It just wouldn't. It would be an abomination if they did get it to work. With the cloud streaming services, you're getting that up and running, and the game looks phenomenal, right? And you're playing that game, and you're participating in games that normally you wouldn't be able to play. So I think that that's a no-brainer, especially with the Nintendo Switch that, historically has been dogged for not having enough third-party support and multi-plat support. I think to get into the realm of the big boys and saying this is my only console, you need to be able to integrate cloud technology and cloud gaming into the Switch, because that's going to put it on par with the other companies. I mean, Xbox and PlayStations, if you can get majority of the multiplats to work on your system via cloud technology, I mean, that's put you on par with everybody else, So Resident Evil 7, when I first heard that news, I was skeptical. Because let's be honest, when Resident Evil 7 came out, it was a little bit ago, this cloud gaming stuff wasn't at the forefront of everybody's mind like it is now. And I was hearing that, I was like, man, that's got to run like really bad. But apparently it really runs decent, really good. And if you have a really good internet connection, stable connection, you can play these games. And I think that's phenomenal. And I look forward to the future. I'm not scared of change. And I love technology and the ability to be able to game in more places and have the ability to access more things. I think it's just more options. It doesn't scare me. It actually excites me. So I look forward to the future.
Yeah, that makes two of us, dude. Real quick, DJ Singh. First of all, welcome, my friend. I think I already said hello, but I'm going to say it again. He says that he's been to Japan and Nintendo is like religion there. That's not a surprise at all. Of course, where it's they started out as a card game, way back in the days before the NES in '85. But look, Nintendo loves Japan. The States loves Nintendo, and it's doing very well here. Let's keep on with the Switch news. This is really cool. Do you like Salty? I got a question for you, and of course for the chat. Do you like pinball? And more specifically, are you a Star Wars fan? Well, if that's a big yes, then this story is for you. The entire Star Wars pinball collection will be coming to the Switch with new modes, and this is where it gets really dope. All 19 tables of Zen Studio Star Wars Pinball are coming to the Switch with vertical play. You're going to be able to turn your Switch to the side and play it like a real pinball game. That is dope. And on top of already being sold through the Nintendo eShop, Salty, the Star Wars pinball game will get a physical edition release. This is the first time ever for Zen Pinball to get a physical release. Star Wars Pinball will launch on September 13th. How funny, right before the big Star Wars movie and the release of Respawn's new game. They announced that at Star Wars Celebration. Look, here's the thing, Salty. I currently own the entire Star Wars Pinball collection on the Xbox. But with that said, you know that because Boom buys everything, I will definitely be picking this up. What about you, my friend?
Yes, sir. You asked if I was a Star Wars fan. I was like, where have you been? No, I love Star Wars, man. It is phenomenal, man. Anything that involves Star Wars, man. I actually have a Star Wars wallpaper on my phone. I just put it on today. So the pinball situation, I think that like when it comes to gaming, it's kind of a physical media, or it began in a physical realm, when you can go to the arcades or even, the skate lands. It's called Skate Land here. It's like a skating rink or whatever.
Oh, okay, cool.
You go and you play the pinball. It has that feel to it where it's a game, but it's a metal ball and it's going around and it's gaming,
at its physical
purest.
Game too.
Yeah. So to have these themes and have Star Wars and all this other stuff, it's just a cool, unique feature. And I think, like I said before, with the Switch, the way it feels when I have it portably and I have the pro gaming grips, which it makes it a crazy awesome experience. But to be able to play pinball on the go would be fun as well. So I definitely will be picking that up. It's a no-brainer for me. I think, Star Wars, when they have these films coming out, they just go balls to the wall and getting content out in every medium and form, news stories, interviews, games, every kind of publicity that they can get to get that movie to get pub. That's what they do, and that's why this is releasing so close to that release date, So.
You know what? Why I'm excited for this is the fact that you're going to be able to turn the Switch to the side, and it's going to be actually like playing a real pinball table, and that is so freaking cool. Let's move on to the next story. But keeping with the Star Wars theme, Salty, the new multi-plat Lego Star Wars game is coming very soon, according to a leak. A new Star Wars game is seemingly in the works, and that's according to Skywalker Sound Matt Wood, who kind of let the cat out of the bag during an interview at Star Wars Celebration over the weekend. And you can see part of the interview below. I got this from comicbook.com. Actually, I got it from Eurogamer. I'm sorry. No new Lego Star Wars game has been announced yet. It's not official. However, Skywalker Sound is the audio company behind the Star Wars franchise and owned by the brand's parent companies, Lucasfilm and Disney. So you'd expect it to know about, that it's going to be coming out relatively soon, or of course, like you just said, around the new feature film that's coming out for Christmas. Well, Eurogamer is reporting it has independently heard word of a new Lego Star Wars project, and GameSpot has contacted Warner Brothers to find out if, in fact, there is a new Lego game. As of this show, though, it has not been confirmed nor denied, Salty. what are your takes on a new Lego game? Are you surprised? We haven't had one Star Wars related in a while, and of course, like you said, when a Star Wars movie's coming out, or it's balls to the wall when it comes to Disney and Lucasfilm. Are you excited to see what they're going to do with the new game?
Yeah, I love these Lego games, and I think it's a perfect medium for the Star Wars type Lego game. I think the Force Awakens had one. I don't think that the Last
Yes.
Jedi had one.
No, I don't think so.
So that's kind of a curious thing there. And then with the way that J.J. Abrams is kind of back at the helm here, so maybe they'll get a game out for this upcoming movie. I think it would be awesome. My kid loves to play the Lego games, and I just think it's, like I said, it's a perfect avenue for Star Wars. These Lego games are cool. A lot of people could participate in them. The young, the old, they're just fun to play with. And it's just interesting why they haven't got a Star Wars title out for The Last Jedi, like I said, but it makes sense, man. I mean, get as many games and interviews and everything else you can out before this last movie, because I heard they're going to be taking a pretty decent break when it comes to the main films. So I think it's going to be a couple years. So yeah, I mean, I would love to see a Lego game for this upcoming feature for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, well, let me just say this. If you're a fan of Star Wars, you obviously know that they announced a Disney Plus streaming service. There's going to be more than enough Star Wars to go around for the next couple of years. So if they take a hiatus with the movies, that's perfectly fine. I love the Lego games. I own every single one of them. That includes the Harry Potter ones. That includes Lord of the Rings. That includes the Avengers. Every one of them, I love them. I don't beat them all, but I got to say, I really enjoy playing through them. You know what? And speaking and keeping with the Star Wars theme, with Jedi Fallen Order more specifically, Amy Hennig really has made some headlines and waves in the last couple of days, where she's been discussing the lack of multiplayer and differences from Visceral's ragtag title that was canceled. And recently, speaking with Eurogamer, which is where I pulled the story from, Hennig spoke about the recent reveal of Fallen Order, a game that many elements uncharacteristically for a project that EA normally doesn't do. Salty, now you know they're notorious for microtransactions and DLC and stuff like that. Well, we know, I don't know what Respawn has, what naked picture they have of the board members, but they're pretty much doing whatever they want. And we know that Jedi Fallen Order is going to be a single player, story driven title. A lot of people are surprised by this, but more specifically, Amy Hennig is surprised by this. And this is what she had to say. It's odd. Let me just start with exactly what she said. She goes, "It's odd. I have to be candid with you. I mean, it's coming from EA Star Wars Twitter handle when they made this announcement, so it's certainly part of the plan, but I don't know whether it's implicitly referencing previous comments that they made after our project was killed." Now, look, I'm going to be honest with you. She sounds... You're going to like this. Hashtag salty there.
Yeah.
And you know what? For good reason. I like Amy Hennig. I don't know her. It would be a dream come true to interview her for the channel. It's never going to happen, but you never know. I was very interested to hear when she was hired to run Visceral on this Star Wars game. I was devastated to find out it was canceled. She was let go. She's currently working on her own stuff with her own newly formed, team and company. So, it's interesting. But the article continues where Hennig went on to speak about how such ideas had been strictly against EA's philosophies when she was at Visceral. With her saying that there probably been some internal changes over the last couple of years that have led to change in outlook for the company, with Fallen Order being representative of those changes. Salty, what are your takes on Amy Hennig and her comments? And are you surprised that she was surprised?
Well, she sounds like a spurned lover to me, man. She's pretty salty. But the thing is I think EA is kind of learning slowly, and I think a lot of people they hate EA no matter what, and they're not going to give them credit when credit's due. But could we give them credit at least this time? I mean, they're not charging, they're not having microtransactions in this game. It's a single player game. It's a Star Wars game. All the things that we've been asking for that people thought were impossible, especially if you're reading the stories from Amy herself. She said that her studio and her project got canned because they're moving in a certain direction with microtransactions and everything like that. It's just, this kind of goes against that whole narrative, and maybe it's kind of time to look introspective look at herself, and maybe her project just wasn't up to snuff. I mean, these guys in the industry, the famous people or the famous studios, they're not above the law or above getting criticism or even failing to that extent. We're looking at the BioWares, the world, the Bungies, even this, Amy, for example, she's a famous, person in gaming. But that being said, I mean, maybe it just, her project wasn't up to snuff, and that's why it got canned, not because of the type of game it was. Because if that was the case, they would have canned this project as well, and this is coming out. So I just think it's good for gaming in general that this game is going to be coming out. You could not be a fan of EA, but I'm just happy to get a single player, story-driven narrative with Souls-like combat, not like the difficulty, but the parrying and the swiping and everything else like that, because they've talked about that. It's kind of the game that I've been waiting for a long time as a Star Wars fan. And I think it's really good. So you could go on one side or the other with Amy or with the EA. It's just, I think it's good for gamers that we're getting this game out.
Yeah, no, I agree. Real quick, Salty, Victor Alistine in the chat says, I think Respawn's acquisition contract included freedom as they were about to be bought by Tencent, I think. And I think you're correct about that. First of all, Vince Zampella is no boob. He always has him and his team's best interest at the forefront of every decision that they've made. And I think you're right about that. I think that is why this game is not running on Frostbite. I think when they say creative freedom, meaning that they could make the game how they wanted to make the game. Of course, they're using Unreal Engine 4, which I applaud them. Thank God that they're not using the horrible Frostbite engine. We see how that worked out for Anthem. Not so much. And if it's not a first-person game, you probably shouldn't be using that engine. But what do I know? I am just a guy behind the mic talking about games. I don't know shit about development, and nor would I want to. That magic would be ruined for me. I just want to play my games and enjoy them. But let's move on to the next topic. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Boom's Game of the Year 2018, is set to get a story creator mode, and based on the new rumor, it seems that the open world game, Salty, is getting more choice-based content. Assassin's Creed, as we know, Assassin's Creed Odyssey has continued to get massive amount of content post-release, with the next 3-part expansion called Fate of Atlantis. First episode is coming on the 23rd, being a de facto replacement for the mainstream title in 2019, with rumors swirling that next year's we're going to get a awesome Viking-inspired entry into the series. Of course, I'm stoked. It looks like, though, this new content that's new to the franchise is going to be coming and potentially coming sooner than later, with a deleted post from community manager Dominic, and I'm going to butcher this, I'm sorry, Voigt, that Reddit posters managed to spot, stating the game would get a story creator mode. The post didn't have much details about what it entails, just that it would be a community-generated content feature that will be available to all owners of the game at a later date. Salty, though, I gotta ask. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a game that keeps giving, and one of the main reasons why it was my personal game of 2018. This new content coming this year sounds really awesome. Of course, it's called the Story Creator Mode. What are your takes on this, on the latest rumors, and are you not surprised or surprised by the amount of support that Ubisoft continues to give this game?
I think it's outstanding that they're supporting this game with quality content. I try to read the story, like the story creators mode, like what I still don't. I'm trying to figure out what this is going to be for gamers. Do you know? Did they give any more details about what this is specifically?
They
Because
didn't. That's
okay,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if, again, when you say story creator mode, is it going to be like, like a forge for Halo, where you're going to be able to build a level and people just play it, and it's going to have story based content in there? I don't know. I put it to this way: there are a lot of unanswered questions, but it
Mhm.
does sound very interesting, Salty.
Yeah, and then potentially they could add more RPG elements, maybe more choose your own adventure type situation in
Yes,
there, you
yes.
know. So where the dialogue affects the story a lot more. That'd be cool. I just think they're going the right way with this franchise. I know it's a completely different direction than it was heading, but I'm excited for the future of this game. I still need to finish Odyssey. There's so much in that game. It's like what, 80 hours to finish,
Oh, dude,
or more.
it's
So
ridiculous, dude.
yeah, so I'll be working on that after Sekiro, probably potentially. It's in my backlog, but the potential to have the Viking setting, I think that's cool. I'm down for that. Just to imagine that setting and what they could do with the RPG elements that they've been adding into Odyssey, and before that Origins, potential armor sets, abilities, and all kinds of crazy stuff, man. What I really want to see in these Assassin's Creed games is dismemberment, man. That's one of the things
Yeah,
that
yeah. You like to see an
I
arm
think that
fly
that'd be,
off, right?
yeah, I think that'd be cool. So if they could add that in, that'd be awesome. But yeah, it's gonna be good for Odyssey fans, and I know that there's a lot out there, you know.
Yeah, real quick, Salty, before we move on to the next topic, Creeper in the chat says he has officially changed his Game of the Year 2018 from a Red Dead Redemption 2 to Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's damn good. And yes, I would not argue with that point. But let's move on to the next topic. Borderlands 3, the Epic Game Store exclusivity, I should say, has been explained by Randy Pitchford, and the Gearbox CEO tries to shed some light on how the deal came to be and why. And in the story that I pulled from Gaming Bolt, the Epic Game Store is, of course, a very controversial topic. And as we know, Borderlands 3 was the latest high profile title to be announced as a timed exclusive for the storefront. And CEO of Gearbox, Randy Pitchford, took to Twitter to explain the deal, why it happened, and to quell some of the concerns for the Epic Game Store's lack of features compared to the other storefronts. According to Randy Pitchford, the decision wasn't his, but instead was the game publishers, who, of course, is Take-Two. And he does admit that he thinks they have done a poor job communicating the decision. And here's what he had to say on Twitter, Salty. First, please understand that although I may have thoughts and opinions about this topic, the authority here truly is in the hands of our publishing partner 2K Games. So while I may have some influence, I cannot force anything and ship this. And basically he's saying, Salty, the ship has sailed on this decision. Sorry to have to say that. That's coming from Randy Pitchford. First of all, my question to you, this is Salty. You and I'm not a PC gamer. I've never been. But my question to you, my question to the chat, why does launching another browser have so many people twisted in their pants? And if Randy Pitchford got a lot of shit for the whole reveal. This isn't his decision. He runs Gearbox. He doesn't run the publishing part. And you're gonna appreciate this, Salty, because you're an analytics kind of guy. We talk about it all the time. Why can't PC gamers, the master race, right? So when you say master race, they're supposed to be the more intelligent. Why can't they understand that a 30% take in profit opposed to a 12% is a big deal in business? Please explain.
Oh man, multifaceted question. I think it comes down to just being educated about the gaming industry, and I think for a certain extent, people don't want to be looking into these kind of things. They just want to immediately just be outraged and blame the nearest person. And I think that Randy's just kind of caught in the crossfire there because people get outraged and they want to. He's on social media, so like, hey, you're part of Borderlands. Like, here's my, negative thoughts to you. And he's blocking people because he's tired of it. It's just a lot of times people don't really know the difference between developers and publishers. And I guess that's just kind of the way it goes. And then with PC master race type people, it's interesting because I hear some arguments where, okay, I've been on Steam and they have achievements there and some other stuff, but I heard the system there is not too great. Essentially, it'd be like owning a PlayStation and an Xbox, and all you got to do is turn on the other system and play the game there, or download it there, and then you're just refused to turn on the system and say, "Oh, no, I'm set in my ways," and you know what I'm saying? It's you have access to the game. It's not like you need to go buy a system or buy a PlayStation to play God of War or some other thing. You have the content available. All you need to do is download it, and it's just these people refuse to do it. I don't know what it is. It's crazy to me. I don't get it. I'm not in that realm, so I guess sometimes people say you can't understand what it's like until you actually do it, or you're like in my shoes. It's like, well, that's fine, but from the outside looking in, it's kind of petty per se.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, great point. Great point. Yeah, the pettiness is just, it's what you would call unnecessarily salty. Would you not agree?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, listen, let's move on to the next one. See, now I got super excited about this. First of all, Aliens versus Predator, not the films. The Capcom game from the arcades is by far my favorite side-scrolling beat 'em up. I actually beat it twice this year. And you say, well, wait a second, Boom, there are no arcades anymore. Well, I do have a Raspberry Pi with an arcade perfect port, and I do like to play that game and run through it a couple of times a year. It's like a piece of crack cocaine that you just can't say no to, even though I've never done drugs. But Aliens versus Predator has been teased by Capcom. Now, why this story is super exciting is because when it comes to these licenses, Salty, you just never know what you're going to get. Usually it's very difficult. Well, look, Capcom UK put out a teaser trailer called The New Challenger, and they were going to make an announcement which was supposed to take place on Tuesday, April 16th at 3 p.m. Ground Mountain time. And they did just that. And what they announced was awesome, but completely out of my wheelhouse. Capcom is releasing a plug-and-play for the home, called the Capcom Home Arcade. It basically is the words Capcom spelled out on a double stick, like from the arcades, with the 6 buttons across each one, and that clicky joystick that we all know and love, especially if you grew up in the arcade, which I think is dope. It has you can plug it right into your right into your TV, and that's awesome. Salty, what's not awesome is this. I got excited when I saw the trailer. I literally jumped out of my chair. I was then devastated. The price of this unit is $250 USD, and if that's not enough, you got to add shipping in there. By the time you're done, I think it's like $278, closer to $283 with tax and shipping. And it only comes with 16 games. Now, look, I'm an old school cat. I grew up in the Nathan's arcade days. If you're an old bastard like me, you appreciate the arcade replicas that we get now with the 1-Up Arcade. Those folks I've teamed up with on my channel, as well as something like this. This is awesome. But $250. Oh my God. It's coming out at the end of the year. And it's pricey. What are your takes on this? Is $250 too much for this unit, Salty?
I mean, value is in the eyes of the beholder, I guess. That's how they say it. I'm surprised that coming from you that buys everything, and especially this is up your alley with the arcades, that you're not on board with this. I think if you're just kind of paying for the name, because it's plastered all over the front of this thing. Yes. It looks cool, like the way you look at it. It's just set up like an arcade would be. But I'm just kind of wondering how this works. Like, where do you where do you sit to play this, or do
You
you, it's
got to
supposed
have
to,
that on. Well, it's going to be difficult to sit on your lap.
yeah, but like
Yeah.
how does that work? Because it plugs into your TV, but like, what are you going to sit it on? I mean, are you going to stand up? Like, what if your TV's on like a short mount or I don't know how this works. Like, I really need to see it in action, because like the trailer that's on that webpage, it just shows like the actual system itself not in use. So I'm
Right.
just like, how does this work? Like, how heavy is this thing? Where are you going to be playing this? Like, how practical is it? Because you with the 1UP arcades that you were showing off, those have practicality to me, because they're actually like standing up on their own. You can go play them. They're self-sufficient. Like this, it's like, where are you going to put this thing to play it? So yeah, it's pricey, and I don't know how convenient this thing is.
Yeah, I mean, look, some of the games that are included are Giga Wing, which is a great arcade game, Darkstalkers, The Night Warrior, Street Fighter 2 Classic, Pro Gear, Aliens versus Predator. It looked like there was a couple of more Capcom, famous Capcom games in there. I think Cyberbots is one of them. It looked like there was a Mega Man game in there. I believe it's the Mega Man arcade game that's never been released before. It's interesting, and of course, if I was rich, right, if I had limitless funds, this is an automatic buy. There are two concerns. One, exactly what you said. How do you play this thing? And two, 16 games for something that's $250. Can we add games to it? Because I know they talked about something wirelessly with it. So maybe at some point you can buy Capcom packs and add games to it. Now that is interesting, because these plug and plays, usually you get what you get. So if they offer the ability to maybe add maybe there's a cartridge slot in there, maybe it's the size of like a very small little cartridge, very similar to the Switch, and you can plug different games in there to add games. I'm hoping that it sells for Capcom, but I will be looking to pick this up when it's certainly a lot cheaper. To me, the go-to price would have been $149. It would have been like, I'll take two, one
Yeah,
for me and
yeah.
one for my brother. But almost $300 for one unit. Man, I don't know.
And apparently, from the article, it says it's meant to be played in your lap, but they're kind of questioning.
It's big, dude. It's a big piece of plastic.
Yeah, the USB cables are going to be strung across the living room floor, and like, how long are your cables? There's a lot of questions here, So
Yeah. It's interesting to say the least. I like I said, I'm an arcade fan. I'm a huge Capcom fan. I was excited, but then of course, all of my hopes and dreams were dashed when I saw the size of it, as well as the price, completely boxing Boom out. Because, there's only so much money that goes around, especially when you support all three consoles. There's no room for the extra stuff, unfortunately. But let's move on to the next story. First of all, pulled from the pages of Game Rant, Epic director teases big Fortnite and Avengers Endgame crossover. And considering that Thanos, not Thanos in the chat, but Thanos already made his debut last year, it's a given point, Salty. Although the Avengers Endgame likely doesn't need any extra press or promoting to break box office records, because you got your tickets and so did I, it appears that a Fortnite crossover might be in the film's future. First was a data mine suggesting that Thanos, the Infinity Gauntlet mode, will be returning, and now a tease from Epic Games' Donald Mustard suggests that Fortnite might have bigger plans. On Twitter, and this is where it gets fun, the Epic Games creator-director posted a picture of actor Robert Downey Jr., who plays Iron Man and, of course, Tony Stark in the Avengers, with a Fortnite shirt on, and it included the caption, "Looking good at Robert Downey Jr. See you soon. Hashtag Team Downey." Mustard could be just celebrating the fact that Downey is wearing a Fortnite shirt, and that is cool. But representing the company in the past the way they have, especially with these crossovers, it's almost evident or given that we're going to see maybe Iron Man in Fortnite, which would be kind of cool. For you, Salty, the biggest game on the planet is apparently getting a lot bigger. But are you surprised by the potential Marvel and Epic Games team up?
I'm not surprised because of how popular the first time around was. And I actually played that game mode, and it was very fun playing as Thanos and destroying everybody on the map. Was I played him when he was like overpowered like a mother, but it was super fun. To be able to play as Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet and destroy people. I think it's a perfect team up because you got the most popular game on the planet and you got the most popular movie on the planet. So you combine those two. I think it's perfect for that setting. And yeah, I think they need to take it up a notch. I don't think they just bring back the basic game mode they had before. Epic likes to up the ante, so why not put some other elements in there? Plus, it's a new movie, so putting potentially Iron Man in there, some form, maybe a skin or something else into this special event would be cool. I think it'd be good for both parties. Obviously, I don't think that either really need the extra cells or even potentially PR, but I think it's just a bonus addition in their pocket. I'll be playing it. I don't play Fortnite much except for with my daughter. When she wants to play, I'll hop on. But I don't just play it on my spare time. But I would go back and play this event because I'm a big Avengers fan.
Yeah, well, that makes two of us. I think we're both big Marvel fans. In a story that came late that I added to the show, the reveal of the Borderlands 3 artwork during PAX East apparently was hiding some very big secrets, according to Game Rant. Several days ago, it was discovered that a Twitch channel for Borderlands that had been hosting an altered version of Borderlands 3 box art, which was hiding a secret message hinting at a boss from the first game potentially making a return to the forthcoming sequel. Now, it looks as if the first-person shooters franchise developer Gearbox Software has decided to put out yet another version of the key artwork for the game that has even more secrets to uncover, Salty. In the bottom right-hand corner of the image found further below, the Borderlands 3 art in question yields a code in the form of what initially appears to be a string of numbers, but actually can be translated into the text. Let me see. We don't speak of Sanctuary 2, which seems to be a reference to Sanctuary, the main hub of Borderlands 2. With that being the case, perhaps an updated version of the area will be making an appearance in Borderlands 3. Another teaser can be found at the top of the newly released Borderlands 3 image, where their rocket ship soaring into the sky. The vessel will be obviously a vehicle that you're going to use, and as we know, Salty, it has been rumored that interplanetary travel is going to be coming to the franchise, that you're going to be able to see other locations that you've never seen. But could we possibly return to places from Borderlands 1 and 2, because now we're going to have the travel? What are your takes on this? And are you excited for Borderlands 3 and what interplanetary travel means for the actual game?
Yeah, I think this is perfect for the game because honestly, looking at the year one remaster of Borderlands 1 and then Borderlands 2, if they're in the same setting like over and over, it just kind of gets kind of stale. So the fact that they're going to have interplanetary travel with spaceships, and even in the trailer that we got, you're seeing some crazy looking varied areas, even kind of like a city type setting, there's lots of cool experiences that it looked like you can have in Borderlands 3, and that's what I've been asking for in this game, because you need these games to evolve and change. Yes. And you need to have new characters, new settings, new locations, new abilities, new guns, because if you have the same game, essentially same location, it's just not going to go over well. It's like if I get all the same stuff, I might as well go and play Borderlands 2. Like, what's the point? So that's cool, and I love how they hide these Easter eggs within some of these trailers and publications for some of the hardcore to find, potentially a new enemy, potentially new locations and everything else like that. Because if you leave stuff like this, no matter how like minute of a detail, someone on the internet is going to find it. Mark my words. I don't know how they do this. Like, these people, I don't know what they're doing, like, to find this shit, but like, it's crazy. Like, they could hide the most minuscule detail and these people will crack the code and find the details. So it's cool, man. I'm super excited for Borderlands 3. It's one of my most anticipated for quarter 4 at the end of the year. So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, of course, 4-player co-op, new settings, new guns, a billion guns with a B.
Yep.
I'm excited. I just finished the Borderlands 1 Game of the Year edition. I'm just about to wrap up all the DLC. I'm finally back to the Division 2. I started Sekiro and I kind of put it down because it's one of those games you've really got to take your time and learn. And right now, I just want to play shooting games. I don't feel like getting my head bashed in, but I will get to it eventually. And in the last story of today's outstanding 19-topic show, this is a bit of a sad one, and I hate to end the show on a sad note, but I have no choice because, again, it was a late story that popped in last night. I had to add it. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 3, the story has unfortunately, and fortunately for us, been revealed. And if again, if this doesn't come to some sort of fruition at some point, Salty, I'm going to be devastated because, look, the fans, including you and I, have been waiting for a new KOTOR 3 for years. And you know what? It's never materialized. We're not exactly sure. From what this article is saying, after Obsidian wrapped development of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords, it started to work on a story pitch for KOTOR 3. And according to Avalon, who I'm not sure who that is, KOTOR 3 would have been about players encountering ancient Sith Lords in specific parts of the galaxy that they control. The game would have seen players visit planets and moons under these ancient Sith Lords' control, where they would have to get a chance to see how the evil influence has wreaked havoc and do something about it. That sounds amazing. Unfortunately, though, according to the story, Obsidian never had a chance to create KOTOR 3 and finish the trilogy. Avalon believes that Obsidian was initially passed on to make KOTOR 3 because the team at LucasArts wanted to handle it internally. And that's pretty sad. Look, here's the thing, Salty. This is a revelation, but at the same time, it's a huge disappointment. I don't know if we're ever going to get to KOTOR 3. BioWare is not the same BioWare. Right now, Obsidian is owned by Microsoft. Of course, it would be great for them to acquire the Star Wars license and make that game. But because EA has that on lock, the only one that could make it is BioWare. And right now, BioWare is in complete disarray. We don't even know what's going to happen with Anthem, let alone actually a KOTOR 3. What are your takes on this story? Are you sad? And are all of the dreams of Star Wars fans across the galaxy, because they've been silenced in one fell swoop due to the Death Star destroying any hopes and prayers of KOTOR 3? What are your takes on this? And what are your concerns on the possibility of a KOTOR 3?
All right, so I'm going to destroy everybody's dreams, and then I'm going to actually give you some hope. So the KOTOR 3 is never going to happen. So here's the deal. Like when Disney acquired the license for Star Wars, they pretty much canned everything up to that point. Like
with canon,
everything,
yeah, right?
Canon. They wanted to start their own. So the original trilogy and then the prequels and all that stuff, that's canon. But like the video games and all that other stuff before, they pick and choose what they want to be canon. So they'll say, okay, this is canon or that's canon. But unfortunately, the Knights of the Old Republic at this moment in time is not canon. But the leader here of the everything, she came out and said, hey, KOTOR, we're interested in developing that, so that was breaking news.
Kathleen Kennedy, right?
Yeah, Kathleen Kennedy says they're interested in Knights of the Old Republic. So I think they're going to be going that route. But if we get a video game, I don't even know if I would trust BioWare to do it at this point. Right. And if it happens, it's going to be new canon and new stories. And they're going to be based on the movies that are going to be done, and it's going to be the directors of the Game of Thrones. They potentially are going to be doing a trilogy, and I think that would perfectly fit for that setting. So if they do those films, then they can come out with the video games and they can call them Knights of the Old Republic. But I think it will be a complete reboot at that point. But I still think that that's cool. I think you could still have some good times there, but a continuation of the story is just all but not going to happen.
Yeah, it's a real shame because obviously those characters were iconic.
Yep.
Revens. I mean,
No,
come
but
on. I mean,
they'll keep those characters, my dude.
oh,
So
okay.
Revan and all those characters that people love, they'll bring those back. Trust me. I
They're
mean,
just
I
going to do
think
a reboot, if you
they'll
will.
just reboot the
Ah,
story,
okay.
so the story will be different, and it might be similar a little bit. But Revan will come back. I think he's actually, according to some of the, so they had the Clone Wars TV show, and then they had this like flashback scene that never got actually made into a cartoon, but they had Revan in there and they had someone else that was in there, and they're technically like in the gray area of being canon, but I think they are canon, and Darth Bane and all them and all those beloved characters. So I believe fully in my heart that we're going to see all those characters come back. It's just going to be a totally different kind of story being told. Maybe it's going to be have similar elements, and then hopefully by that time we're going to have the situation worked out with this licensing, because it's going to be a while before those movies come out. And then at that time, I don't even know if EA will have the license anymore.
I think they
So
have it to 2022, Salty, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, because it's going to be a while before we get these KOTOR movies out. Like, movie development takes a while. So I don't see these movies coming out till maybe even after that time period when the license expires. And then at that point, I mean, it's all up in the air. Maybe Lucasfilm brings back, LucasArts, because there's rumors of that. And there's stuff that can happen there. So just like I said, I'm going to shatter your dreams and give you hope at the same time, so.
You know what? Real quick, I have it in the title, and I completely overlooked it. Ed Boon, who obviously is, of course, the maker of the famous Mortal Kombat series, had some interesting things to say during an interview. Salty, he talked about. He said, and this is a bonus content, making it 20 topics for the day. That he had talked to Marvel about making a fighting game based on the Mortal Kombat engine. But more specifically, he talked about a Marvel versus DC fighting game. Now, all I can say is I normally don't curse, but holy shit.
Yep.
First of all, I don't know what the roster would look like. You'd have to have 50 people for sure, 25 from each side. But just could you imagine for a second, Ed Boon being the person who he is, NetherRealm Studios being the studio that they are, having the Marvel and DC licenses, being able to put a story together. I mean, we saw what they did with Injustice 1 and 2. It was phenomenal. But just imagine those graphics, that gameplay, those CG trailers, the story, but Marvel versus Marvel versus DC. First of all, what are your takes on this? And does this excite you as a comic book fan, Salty?
Man, how could it not excite you? First of all, you wouldn't have a pulse, or you wouldn't be a real comic book fan, in my opinion. The thing is NetherRealm is at the top of the game when it comes to fighters, realistic style fighters. I've said this before. I'm not the biggest fighter fan, but the two franchises that draw me in are Mortal Kombat and Smash. Okay, so they fit two areas for me. I think NetherRealm is just outstanding in what they do, man. I own the DC game, and I own Mortal Kombat games, and I buy those games, so that speaks volumes to the quality of the work. And it would just be ridiculous for them to combine DC and Marvel, and it's happened in the comic books before.
Yes, it has.
So deals can be done. There's lots of red tape to cut through, but man, if they could somehow figure out a way to combine those two, you would have to make the lineup like at least 60. I mean, 30 on each side, potentially even more than that, because Smash had almost 70 playable characters, so you could easily do that. 35 on each side, just have this huge.
I would take 20 on each side, to be honest with you, and be done with it, and just give me some DLC characters. I would gladly pay top dollar for this game. Of course, it would have to have a collector's edition with one character versus the other.
That team up would be one of the biggest hyped fighters ever. Like, it just, That if that ever happened, it would just be similar to kind of this hype level to Avengers, man. Like just seeing these characters on screen with those graphics. You can imagine it being like on a next gen system and being able to fight just iconic characters versus each other, Iron Man versus Batman or something like that, you know. So it'd be cool.
Look, all I can say is that it is I guess you could say it's a geek's dream come true. I'm a
Yep.
huge MCU fan. I love what they're doing with the DC extended universe. It's taken a different, turn, obviously. With the last set of movies, you had Wonder Woman, which was fantastic. Aquaman, fantastic. Shazam, I have not seen, but I'm gonna go see. You're hearing really great things about that. Look, the, you know Ed Boon, who doesn't make mistakes, folks. All right, this is a guy that's been around for a very, very long time. He says things. Sometimes he'll kind of pull it back. He actually this came out in an interview where they asked him a bunch of questions, like a bunch of rapid fire questions, and you can call it a slip up, but he did say he did talk with Marvel. What he didn't confirm or deny was that he's still talking to both Marvel and DC. But you said something important during what you were talking about. They're at the top of the game. Everybody wants to be involved with NetherRealm Studios. He had talked a couple of years ago about doing a Killer Instinct versus Mortal Kombat, which, of course, I've tweeted at him a dozen times. I have yet to get a response. Ed Boon, if you're listening to this show, first of all, thank you. Second of all, at least let's get a KI character in the new Mortal Kombat. End of story. But getting back to this story, Salty, he said he thought he can get in trouble and that he was going to not answer anymore. To me, that sounds like there might be something there. Just before we get out of here, what was your take on the fact that he kind of pulled it back and like, I maybe shouldn't be speaking about this?
I mean, if they're working on something, you got to keep that under wraps, you know what I'm saying, before deals are done or any of that stuff. So yeah, it's exciting. I mean, if it wasn't going to happen, he just flat out say, hey, it's not going to happen, right? It's not, I've tried, they shot it down. It's just not a possibility. But I mean, as long as he's not shooting it down and he's kind of keeping his lips tight, there's always a possibility, which is good. And like you've seen, if Epic can get a deal done to get, an Avengers type thing, a Thanos game mode, or there's deals that can be done and deals that can be had. So they could make it work. It's happened in the comics, so they've had crossover events with DC and Marvel and stuff like that. It's kind of, there's some red tape there with DCEU and, Marvel and stuff, but I think they could get it. I think it could work, honestly. So.
Yeah, me too. But listen, Salty, this has been an outstanding 20 topic episode. We actually went into overtime. We're almost an hour and 45 minutes into the program. Of course, we got to get everybody out of here. First of all, I want to say thank you to the outstanding chat once again. You guys absolutely power the show and rock beyond belief. Salty and I thank you so much for being here each and every week and accepting this new show that we do. That was a dream project for both of us and supporting both channels. Salty, of course, you have a lot going on. You have been very, very busy this week. Of course, you have your Saltiest podcast tomorrow evening. Please tell everyone where they could sub your channel, which is going to be 4,000 subs before the end of the year for sure. Yeah, for sure. I'm thinking more like by the time of the end of the summer, which is magnificent. And of course, tell everyone they could follow you on Twitter, dude.
Yeah, Twitter is Saltiest Gaming, all one word, the eyes of one. Yeah, we had some great live streams. I kind of did a Monday stream. It's called A Pinch of Salt. It's kind of just, I wanted to do a video, but at the same time, I didn't think that the topics were deemed worthy for a full video, and it fit into a live stream. So I love just getting on the mic and interacting with the community. That was good. And then we had the live stream yesterday for Inside Xbox. That was awesome. We had the Welsh Gamer and Titan Drago on there, so that was cool. Saltiest Gaming Podcast is tomorrow, Thursday, and guess what, guys? It's the end of the drawing. So 2 copies of Mortal Kombat 11 are going to be given away on the platform of your choice. So if you haven't gotten in on that giveaway, I highly suggest doing that. I mean, it's free. The saying goes, if it's free, I'll take 3. I mean, in this case, you get 1, but that's great. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, get in on that. That's going to be ending tomorrow at like 6 p.m. Pacific. So, yeah, it should be a good show. We might have a pretty good guest on there. We'll see. But yeah, it's been awesome. Thanks for everybody in the chat.
Well, listen, real quick, before we get out of here, don't forget tomorrow is a big show for the Xbox Factor podcast. And of course, I team up with the Welsh Gamer. We are privileged and ridiculously honored to have Ryan Roth, who is the audio director for Void Bastards. He's going to be on for the first hour. We've taken some questions from the community. I got up. I don't know if I told you the story, Salty. Friday evening, I had gone to sleep right after Crossfire. Both my wife and I were exhausted. And I got up at 1 o'clock in the morning. I had dreams, okay, basically dreaming of this interview. Because to be honest with you, it's a big interview for me. The same thing with Brad Sams I had on the week before. I was extremely nervous because I'm new to interviewing people. Talking about games, super easy. Interviewing people, really, not so much. It does take a lot of work. And I wind up staying up for almost 3 hours writing. I didn't go to bed till almost 4 in the morning. I wrote all the questions. I sent them over to Ryan. He loved all of them. I'm really excited for this. This is a big deal for the show. It's back-to-back weeks. Again, we had Brad Sams on last week. This week, we're going to have Ryan Roth. I cannot wait to hear about Void Bastards. It looks like a phenomenal game. I really want to do the best I can to triumph this game. And if you're interested to hear about the game, working with that team and what it takes to be an audio director, please make sure you tune in tomorrow. At least be there for the first hour because that's when Ryan is going to be there. And of course, Breakfast with Boom, I'm going to make an announcement. The guest list is overbooked, but we're going to figure it out. And the topics that I came up with are just going to be phenomenal. All, of course, positive gaming. So once again, I want to thank everybody for being here in the chat. Thank you for, of course, the super chat donations that I've been receiving. The generosity of this community is nothing short of amazing. And of course, Salty, thank you for being here because I could not do this without you. So again, let me get everybody out of here and say, enjoy your gaming. Have a fantastic Wednesday. And I'll see you tomorrow on the Xbox Factor podcast. Have a great day, everybody.